A simple old lady asked to sing at talent show. Then everyone goes silent. Eleanor Williams shuffled through the dimly lit hallway of Meadowbrook Community Center, her weathered hands clutching a well-worn sheet of music. At 78, her steps were careful but determined. The sounds of the annual Spring Valley Talent Show echoed from the auditorium ahead. Laughter, applause, the occasional squeal of feedback from the microphone. She paused, adjusting the simple blue dress she'd purchased from the thrift store last week, especially for tonight. "Mrs. Williams, you made it," called Sarah Jenkins, the event coordinator and Eleanor's former student from when she taught 3rd grade, decades ago. "I was worried you might change your mind." Eleanor offered a thin smile. "I nearly did, dear. 3 times just today." Her voice carried the slight raspiness that had developed with age, but retained a musical quality that hinted at something more. Sarah gently touched Eleanor's arm. "The kids from the high school are finishing their dance number now. You'll be up in about 5 minutes. Are you sure you're ready?" Eleanor nodded, though the tremble in her hands betrayed her nerves. It had been 53 years since she'd sung in public. 53 years since that terrible night when Richard, her late husband, had criticized her performance so harshly she'd vowed never to sing again except in the shower or when she thought no one was listening. "Mrs. Williams?" It was Jason, Sarah's 16-year-old son, who had been helping with the talent show. "My mom asked me to check if you need anything. Water. A chair backstage?" "No. Thank you, young man. Just these old butterflies in my stomach to settle down." She patted her midsection with a soft chuckle. Jason smiled. "You know, my grandma says the day you stop getting nervous is the day you should stop performing. Means you don't care anymore." Eleanor's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." From inside the auditorium, applause erupted as the dance number concluded. Sarah reappeared, slightly frazzled but smiling. "Okay, Mrs. Williams, you're up next. Mayor Dawson will introduce you after this short break." Eleanor took a deep breath, remembering Dr. Patel's advice about her blood pressure. "One step at a time," she whispered to herself, recalling how her granddaughter had convinced her to sign up. "Do one thing that scares you," Lily had said during their weekly phone call. "Show them what you've been hiding all these years." The mayor's voice boomed through the speakers. "Next up, we have a special treat. A first-time performer at our talent show, though she's been a beloved member of our community for over 40 years. Please welcome to the stage, Mrs. Eleanor Williams." Clutching her music sheet, Eleanor walked slowly toward the stage, each step feeling heavier than the last. The spotlights temporarily blinded her as she approached the microphone, revealing a sea of faces, some familiar, most not. In the front row sat Lily, who had flown in from Chicago as a surprise, her eyes shining with encouragement. "Good evening," Eleanor said, her voice barely audible at first. She cleared her throat and tried again. "I'll be singing Bridge Over Troubled Water." It was my late husband's favorite, though he never knew I could sing it quite like this. The pianist, a young woman from the local college, began the gentle introduction. Eleanor closed her eyes, transported back to her youth, to the church choir, where she'd once been the star soloist before marriage, and life's responsibilities had taken priority. As the moment for her entrance approached, she opened her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to sing. The voice that emerged surprised even Eleanor. Rich, powerful, and filled with 5 decades of unspoken emotion. The audience, which had been shuffling programs and checking phones, gradually grew still. Row by row, faces lifted in astonishment as her voice soared through the auditorium, carrying the soulful lyrics with unexpected power and control. As Eleanor reached the climax of the song, her voice broke slightly, not from weakness, but from the raw emotion she poured into each word. The entire auditorium sat in stunned silence, many with tears streaming down their faces. When the final note faded, there was a moment of complete stillness before the room erupted in thunderous applause. Eleanor blinked, disoriented by the standing ovation. Through her tears, she saw Lily jumping up and down, clapping wildly. Sarah stood at the side of the stage, mouth agape. Even the mayor was on his feet, his usual stoic demeanor replaced by undisguised amazement. As Eleanor made her way back to her seat, dozens of hands reached out to touch her, to congratulate her. "Where have you been hiding that voice?" asked Mrs. Gonzalez from the senior center. Eleanor could only smile, her heart too full for words. Later that night, as Lily drove her home, Eleanor gazed out the window at the familiar streets of Spring Valley. "I should have done that years ago," she said quietly. Lily reached over to squeeze her grandmother's hand. "It's never too late to start singing again, Grandma?" And for the first time in decades, Eleanor believed that might be true. The video of Eleanor's performance hit the local news first. "Hidden talent. 78-year-old woman. Stuns community with powerful voice," read the headline. By the next morning, someone had uploaded it to YouTube with the title, "Watch this old lady silence an entire auditorium with her voice." Eleanor's phone wouldn't stop ringing. "Mrs. Williams, it's Sarah again. I'm so sorry to keep bothering you, but Channel 5 wants to interview you for their evening broadcast, and the director of the county choir called. They're hoping you might consider joining them." Eleanor sat at her kitchen table, overwhelmed by the attention. Her small bungalow, usually so quiet and orderly, had been disrupted by the constant calls and occasional visitors dropping by with flowers or handwritten notes of appreciation. "I don't understand all the fuss," she told her neighbor Grace, who had brought over a homemade apple pie. "I just sang a song." "Eleanor," Grace said firmly, cutting them each a slice, "I've known you for 20 years, and I had no idea you could sing like that. You moved people. In a world where everyone's always looking down at their phones, you made an entire room look up. That's something special." Eleanor sipped her tea thoughtfully. Richard always said my voice was nothing special. After a while, I believed him. Grace's expression hardened. Well, with all due respect to the deceased, Richard was wrong about a lot of things. The following day, Eleanor received an unexpected visitor, Marcus Johnson, the music director from Spring Valley High School, stood on her porch holding a folder of sheet music. "Mrs. Williams, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I was at the talent show with my wife." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I've been teaching music for 17 years, and I've rarely heard such a natural talent, especially the emotional quality of your voice. That can't be taught." Eleanor invited him in, curious about his visit. "Our school is putting on a production of Our Town next month," Marcus explained as they sat in her living room. "We've been struggling with the musical interludes. I was wondering if you might consider performing a few solos during the scene transitions. Nothing too demanding, just 3 or 4 songs throughout the show." Eleanor's first instinct was to refuse. The talent show had been one thing, a one-time event to prove something to herself. But an actual production, multiple performances. "I don't know, Mr. Johnson. I'm not a professional. And at my age, please, call me Marcus. And age is irrelevant here. Your voice has a lifetime of experience in it. Exactly what our production needs." He smiled warmly. "The students would benefit enormously from working with you too. Many of them were at the talent show. They can't stop talking about the old lady with the amazing voice." Eleanor laughed despite herself. "Well, at least they're accurate about the old part. Will you at least think about it?" Marcus asked, leaving the folder on her coffee table. "The rehearsals would only be twice a week. We'd work entirely around your schedule." After he left, Eleanor sat alone in her quiet house, the folder of music untouched before her. She thought about all the years she'd spent silencing her own voice, about Richard's cutting remarks whenever she sang along to the radio, about the way she'd taught herself to hum instead of sing when feeling happy. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Lily. "Grandma, I just got a promotion at work, and my boss specifically mentioned that video of you singing as one of the reasons. He said it reminded him of his own grandmother and how she always encouraged him to pursue music. He said watching you inspired him to take more chances on people with non-traditional backgrounds. Isn't that amazing?" Eleanor felt something shift inside her, a realization that her voice, hidden away for so many decades, might actually matter to others. That evening, she called Marcus and accepted his offer. The next few weeks passed in a blur of rehearsals, vocal exercises, and relearning how to read music. Eleanor discovered muscles she hadn't used in years, both physical and emotional. At times, she felt foolish, a senior citizen among teenagers, trying to reclaim something she'd abandoned half a century ago. But the students surprised her. Far from mocking her age or inexperience, they treated her with a mixture of respect and genuine curiosity. Sophia, the 16-year-old playing Emily in the production, often sat with Eleanor during breaks. "My grandma lived with us until I was 12, Sophia confided one afternoon. "She used to sing Mexican folk songs while cooking. After she died, my mom stopped singing completely. Watching you perform makes me think maybe my mom could start again someday too." Eleanor began to understand that her participation in the play had become something larger than herself. Each time she opened her mouth to sing during rehearsals, she felt as if she were not just reclaiming her own voice, but somehow speaking for all the women who had silenced themselves over the years. Opening night arrived on a perfect spring evening. Eleanor stood backstage, dressed in a simple period costume, her heart racing as she listened to the familiar opening lines of Thornton Wilder's play. When the time came for her first interlude, she stepped into the soft spotlight at the side of the stage and began to sing "Shall We Gather at the River," her clear voice filling the school auditorium with a haunting, timeless quality. Just as at the talent show, the audience fell completely silent. But this time, Eleanor wasn't surprised by her own voice or their reaction. This time, she sang with intention, with the full knowledge of what her voice could do and what it meant to use it after so many years of silence. After the final curtain call, as the cast celebrated backstage, the principal of Spring Valley High approached Eleanor with an unusual proposition. "Mrs. Williams, we've been looking for someone to lead an after-school music program for seniors in our community. The school board has secured funding, but we needed the right person to inspire participation." He handed her a formal letter. "We'd like that person to be you." Eleanor stared at the letter, momentarily speechless. "But I'm not a trained instructor. I don't have any qualifications." The principal smiled. "You have the most important qualification. You understand what it means to rediscover your voice later in life. That's exactly what this program needs." As Eleanor drove home that night, the streets of Spring Valley looked different somehow, alive with possibilities she hadn't considered in decades. She thought about all the other people like her, with talents buried under years of doubt and discouragement. She thought about Richard, too. For the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge that while she had loved him, his criticisms had diminished her in ways that had taken a lifetime to overcome. "I'm singing again," she whispered, as if he could hear her. "And I'm good at it. I've always been good at it." The senior music program began with just 7 participants, most of them coaxed into joining by Eleanor's growing local celebrity. They met in the high school music room every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, their voices tentative at first, embarrassed by their own rustiness. "I haven't sung since my wedding day, 52 years ago," admitted Harold, a retired postal worker with a surprisingly rich baritone. "My husband always said I sounded like a dying cat," confessed Mabel, whose sweet soprano emerged once she stopped apologizing before every note. Eleanor recognized in each of them the same hesitation she had carried for so long. "Singing isn't about being perfect," she told them during their first session. "It's about being heard, about taking up space in the world with your voice." Week by week, the group grew both in numbers and in confidence. They began with simple folk songs and gradually progressed to more challenging pieces. By the third month, they had been invited to perform at the town's 4th of July celebration, a small set of patriotic songs that received enthusiastic, if not quite stunned, applause. One evening after rehearsal, as Eleanor was gathering her music, she found Sophia waiting for her by the door. "Mrs. Williams, I wanted to tell you something." The teenager shifted nervously. "My mom came to see our town twice. The second time, she brought my aunt. They were both crying after your songs." Eleanor waited, sensing there was more. "Last night, I heard my mom singing in the kitchen for the first time since my grandma died." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "It was one of my grandma's old songs. I recorded it on my phone without her knowing." She held out her phone, and Eleanor listened to the slightly off-key but heartfelt voice of a woman reclaiming something she had lost. In that moment, Eleanor understood that what had begun as a simple talent show performance had rippled outward in ways she could never have anticipated. Summer turned to fall, and the senior choir, now calling themselves the Late Bloomers, prepared for their holiday concert. They had graduated from performing at local events to being invited to neighboring towns. A regional arts magazine had even featured them in a spread titled, "It's Never Too Late," the choir that proves second acts are possible. As Eleanor stood before the group during their final rehearsal of the season, she looked at the 23 faces before her, each one bearing the lines and stories of a long life lived, each one now lit with a new purpose. "When I was a young woman," she told them, "I believed that important things happened only when you were young, that by the time you reached our age, your story was mostly written." She smiled, feeling the truth of what she was about to say. "I've never been so happy to be wrong." That night, as she prepared for bed, Eleanor caught sight of herself in the mirror. The face that looked back at her was old, yes, lined with 8 decades of joys and sorrows, but the eyes were bright with a quality she hadn't seen in herself for years. Possibility. She thought about the upcoming holiday concert, about the senior music program expanding to 3 sessions a week next year, about Lily's suggestion that they record an album of traditional songs before they're forgotten. Mostly, though, she thought about her voice, how it had waited patiently all those years, how it had emerged when she finally gave it permission, how it had shown her that it's never too late to become who you might have been. Eleanor Williams turned out her bedside lamp and began to hum softly to herself, no longer afraid of being heard. The following spring, a letter arrived from the State Arts Council, inviting the Late Bloomers to perform at the governor's annual gala. Eleanor read it aloud to the group, watching their faces light up with disbelief and excitement. In the corner of the music room, a documentary filmmaker had been quietly capturing their journey for the past 3 months. "This is exactly the moment I was hoping to record," she whispered to her assistant. "The moment they realize they're not just a novelty, they're artists being recognized for their talent." On Eleanor's 80th birthday, Lily presented her with a leather-bound scrapbook containing newspaper clippings, concert programs, and dozens of letters from people whose lives had been touched by her courage to sing again. "I found this at the bottom of your old trunk," Lily said, slipping a faded photograph between the pages of the scrapbook. It showed a young Eleanor, no more than 20, standing at a microphone with a choir behind her. "You were always this person, Grandma. You just forgot for a while." As Eleanor drifted off to sleep that night, She realized that the most beautiful song she'd ever sung wasn't performed on any stage. It was the melody of her life, with all its missed notes and unexpected harmonies, finally being played as it was always meant to be heard,